get us started, if you can say your name and spell it for us.
Sure. My name is Michelle Reagan, Michelle Reagan.
And you were living a pretty active life when all of a sudden all hell broke loose.
Yeah, that's kind of to say the least. I ran 5 marathons. I was probably what you consider a workoutaholic. My friends were, thought I was nuts. I was a healthy eater, super healthy, where people would go to happy hour, I would go back to the gym. I'd already been there at 5 a.m. and I would get out from work and I would go straight to the gym and spend another hour or two there. And I'd work out at least 6 days a week, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day. And I'd probably be upset with myself that I couldn't get 7 hours, that I needed that day of rest. So for all my friends, I was the healthiest, never ate fried foods, wasn't a big drinker, never did drugs in my life, non-smoker, the typical picture of health. Did triathlons, could bike 50 miles without a blink of the eye. And then the day after my birthday, I walked up a flight of steps to go to work out of the subway, and I was like, wow, I just couldn't, I had a hard time breathing. And I thought, this is an odd chest cold. I never really felt this way before. And before that, I just had a hard time sleeping at night and thought it was anxiety and, stress from work and life and living in New York. So I went to work that day, it was a Friday, and just started to really get run down quicker and quicker. By the end of that night, by the end of the day at work, I went home, and at night I was just going to stay home, got, whatever, Tylenol, cold, severe sinus infection. Popped a couple of them, and my friend said, let's go out to the Hamptons. So I said, okay, I'll sleep better there. It's so noisy in the city, and get a good night's sleep. Went out there, couldn't sleep at all that night. Next morning, I said, oh, it's a Saturday. It's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm like, boy, I really don't feel good. I think I'm going to go back to the city. And my friend said, you're going to be by yourself all weekend. So they convinced me to stay out there. By the next day, I was in the hospital with what they thought was double pneumonia. Like, they thought it was full case, blown, covered my lungs. Of course, they're like, oh, it's AIDS at first. That's like a nice, makes you feel really relaxed. Especially when you're not a drug doer, you're not, into anything strange. You're into working out too much and eating too healthy. So a day later, they're like, oh, you just have pneumonia. I'm like, how the heck could I have that? So I sat up in the bed the whole time while I was getting intravenous drugs, and they let me go by like Tuesday. Wednesday, I was back in New York. But that Friday, I wasn't feeling good again. And by that Monday, I came in to see my doctor here in New York, and he said, boy, you still have some fluid in your lungs. But he was going on the pneumonia. So I went home. He gave me some antibiotics. By Tuesday, 9 a.m., I'm like, I can't make it. I can't breathe anymore. And I had never had a fever, never had a headache, never had anything, never spit up any mucus or runny nose, typical cold signs. So I went into the hospital here in New York, and I was in a coma, induced a coma, probably by 10 o'clock that morning. And that was a Tuesday. I woke up, I guess, probably Thursday late night, not even knowing where I was, what happened, and looked down, and I had this, cut down my chest, and I was like, what happened? And they said, well, you had a tumor in your heart, but we got it out, and you're okay, and it was benign. So I said, okay, and still I'm spaced out of my head. I close my eyes, I see like purple dragons, and so by the time I get out of there, it's 3 days later, 4 days later, I'm walking again 45 minutes a day with my mom, and I go back in, and pathology said, sit down. This is malignant. This is a cardiac sarcoma in your left atrium. It was laying on your mitral valve. We really don't know anything about it. It's such a rare thing to happen to people. We've spent days calling people in the city, and they said the best chance of your survival is aggressive dissection. We've got to make sure all the cancer is removed. So there I am. I'm like, I was just walking 45 minutes a day. I'm like, you're not cutting this chest open again. Like, it's not happening. So they said, we have to. So I was like, okay. So figuring I'm going to go back to where I had gone before. They knew my heart. They knew what they did. I was really left in the dark about how serious this was. And I had a friend who was very successful in New York, and he wasn't working. He took me on as his project. And thank God he did, because you know what? I didn't have the strength to do it myself. He would show up at my parents' house where I was staying at like 7 a.m., and he was on the computer 24 hours a day, faxing doctors. He was calling Europe. He was calling all over the states, the Mayo Clinic, Mass General, just you name it, he called it. He was doing research because he knew how important it was and how serious this was for my life. As I'm just walking around like, ooh, I got to, start walking again and start healing. Well, literally the Friday before I went in to get the surgery done again here in New York, and I was going to be admitted on Sunday, he set up not an interview, just me meeting a friend of his for dessert, who was a surgeon who studied under Dr. Patrick McCarthy, and also under a very famous doctor here in New York. And he said to me, Michelle, you don't realize what you're dealing with. And I said, well, they told me that it's better for me to go to somebody who already saw my heart, knew what they did. He said, yes, if it was a slam dunk case, that is the truth. I said, well, they said it was going to be pretty easy. Just go in, clean up my septum, close me up, 45 minutes in me. So he said, I studied, I'm a heart surgeon. I know a lot about this stuff, and I just think you don't fool around with your heart. And so I looked at him and I said, okay, if your mom was going to go to somebody, honestly, who would you send her to? And he goes, Dr. Patrick McCarthy in Cleveland Clinic. And I said, you would? I said, how about this other doctor in New York? And he said, no. He goes, he's famous. He goes, but Dr. McCarthy does all of his work on his own. He's there where this other famous doctor, he will oversee his assistants do it. And he goes, you don't want that. This is your life, your heart. And you know what? That moment is when I decided, if this heart surgeon is telling me he would send his own mom to Dr. McCarthy, I'm there. And literally, my friend that next day got another friend to lend us his private plane. We flew down to Cleveland. Dr. McCarthy got his whole staff to run me through an amazing, just tests, everything that needed to be done. It was the most professional thing I've ever seen. It's just like the top-notch university you can think of, where one doctor's, hooking you up to this, and their state-of-the-art facility and technology and equipment. And then the next doctor's saying, you know what, we really should check this too. And you're just kind of being moved through. And within that day, I had met with, 10 doctors, surgeons, everything, pathology, you name it. And with Dr. McCarthy. And he also said, you know what, this should be pretty easy. It looks like from all the tests we've done, and from what we can see, you have a lot of scar tissue, so we won't know until we get in there. But it should be pretty straightforward. And he said, we'll give you the best chance you have of survival. And I said, that's what I want. Because I'm realizing, I don't have a great chance of survival. I was told basically if this comes back in the first year, I have a 20% chance to live. If that. And that's with like massive chemo, radiation, you name it. So if it comes back, I'm gone. I'm written off. So I felt sitting there talking to Dr. McCarthy, this is a man with a track record of the majority of his surgeries are difficult ones. Not your run-of-the-mill every day. So we went back home and got the troops together. The whole family came down and went in for surgery. And 6 hours later, Dr. McCarthy came out, beads of sweat coming off him. He was like, holy Christmas. That was like, one of the hardest things I've done. And he said, you know what? But we've given you the best chance of survival. And I was just like, that's all I wanted. I mean, he did radical stuff. They put in a new pacemaker, put in a new mitral valve. But he did radical stuff that when I came back to New York and talked to some doctors here that I had consulted, they said, you know what, Michelle, to be all honest with you, we would have had to sew you back up and send you somewhere else. Now, I might not have lived. So, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for Dr. McCarthy. And I mean, you read my post-op report, you're like, whoa, like the amount of heart tissue he took out is miraculous. Another doctor would not have the confidence in himself to say, we can do this to this girl and she'd still live and have a life, because he knew how active I was. And I didn't want to be in a wheelchair or, sedentary my whole life. And so when I woke up that morning and Dr. McCarthy just grabbed my leg and he shook it and he said, you know what? We gave you the best chance. I knew in my heart he did, and literally in my heart, I knew he did. So I went home and was kind of getting my strength back again. And then I had to go into chemo. So I have like just a little, even not Cleveland. Cleveland kind of, once I started to go there, it really paved my way for my whole recovery, because I relied on their oncologists, their radiologists, and I could have went and lived at Cleveland and had my whole treatment done there. But you know what? I really am I'm big in support units, and so was Cleveland. They told me what they would do, and they consulted with my doctors here in New York. And between Cleveland and Sloan Kettering, I ended up going there. They worked together with them, and they decided they were in sync, and I could get the same, basically, cocktail of chemo here in my home. So I got that done. That started 9/11, of course, 2001, with the towers coming down. And I have to tell you, you know what? Most people would be like, it was just, it was a horrendous thing here in New York, especially somebody who lives here. But I'll have to tell you, when my friends went down with the blink of an eye, and I'm sitting here with a second chance, I was the luckiest person in the world. I had so many angels on my shoulder. One, to find me Cleveland Clinic. And two, like that I was sitting there on 9/11 alive because of Cleveland Clinic, and I had this second chance. So yeah, I'm getting a horrible chemo. I lost my hair in 7 days. I turned gray, couldn't run. Yeah, it dried my heart out. And, but as they'll laugh, and Dr. McCarthy will laugh, as it didn't stop me. I finished chemo in December. I got on a plane in January with Stanford and went around the world. And, one of the funnier things is I was in Cambodia with the monks, and they all made me stand by the monk, because there I am, no eyebrows, no hair, no eyelashes, and it was just kind of a cute picture. And with that, I had a lot of leakage from the chemo. So I went down again, because I would do my checkups in Cleveland, because I didn't have a lot of faith in some of the top institutions. It's insane to say, but living here in New York,